All right, looks like we are live. Guys, welcome to The Code. It's me, your host, Josh Gayman. I'm super excited. Looks like we got a couple people in the room right now. Do we have the chat? Let me open up the chat here. Jalen, Michelle, how's it going, guys? And it is 3:01 out here in Arizona. Andy just jumped on the call. Guys, as you guys are getting on, I'm sure we're going to have a bunch more people jumping on here, here probably in the first 5 minutes. Go ahead and if you want, just let me know in the comments real quick where you are jumping on from. Fernando, what's up? So guys, we're going to talk about seller. So today I'm super excited because today is the first video in our seller conversion series inside of the code. So I'll get into it in a minute, but there's basically 4 steps inside of seller conversion secrets. So when I say conversion secrets, what I mean is taking leads that come in your wholesale business and turning them into deals. And we talked in module 3 all about marketing and the difference between prospecting and marketing. So as we get started here, it looks like we've got a couple more people jumped on. Kevin, Ricky, how are you? So we've got Andy, Fernando, Jalen, Jay, Kevin, Michelle, Ricky. Guys, let me know. Jalen says, what's going on? Hey. Let me know where you guys are coming on from. And hope everybody's having an awesome Monday. We sold a deal quickly this morning. That was fun, always fun. Just got a new contract in, and I think we've got like 3 or 4 out right now on our hot sheet. So pretty excited. We got Oakland, California in the house. We got North Carolina. We've got Durham. We've got Tempe. What's up? Another local investor. We got North Jersey in the house. Super excited, guys. So a couple of announcements, and then I'm going to dive right into to this first part of this series. We'll talk about qualification today. Is we've got literally just a couple seats left for Miami. So if you guys are on the fence about coming to Miami, definitely jump in. If you need me to resend the link to you guys can come to Miami at 75% off. So the ticket price, and a lot of people actually that bought Miami are not in the code, and they bought it right when Miami came out, are paying $2,000, okay, per seat. So it's an incredible value to be able to come to Miami at $497. But there's only a couple seats left. Now, if you're not able to come to Miami, whether it's a travel thing, a schedule thing, whatever, I still recommend jumping in, grabbing your seat, sending us a message, letting us know you want the recorded version of Miami. We're not going to be selling the recordings for at least 6 months to a year. And if they go on sale, we'll be selling the recordings out at $19.97. That's what we've done in the past with some of our live events. We did actually a whole 2 days on conversion secrets, which is exactly what we're going to be training on today in Dallas, Texas. Last year, we sold the replay for 1 weekend at $2,000. About 15 people jump into it. So, guys, it's a seriously no. I'm not trying to just hype it up. It's an insane value to be able to snag your ticket at $497. We've only got a couple seats left. So if you're on the fence, jump in. And then also, if you guys haven't had a chance yet to jump into the cold calling on steroids. I know some people that are in the code have already been through the masterclass, and that's super exciting. If you have not been through the cold calling on steroids training, make sure to check out that recording, the replay recording inside of the code where we went over cold calling on steroids. There was a $5,000 price tag to go into the masterclass, and through the code, you can get 80% off and go through that masterclass for $1,000. And what I would recommend doing if you're thinking about doing that is go back and watch that replay inside the code. I think it's about an hour and 10 minutes, something like that. And then watch module 3, where we talked about cold calling on steroids and the importance of cold calling on steroids and the comparison to other prospecting and marketing methods. So I'd probably recommend, if you haven't already, watch module 3, then watch the live replay. And I think you'll find it's a no-brainer to go into that course. So guys, without further ado, we got a bunch of people on, and if you're just getting on right now, welcome. Guys, I'm really excited. Like I said, today we're going to start the first part of our seller conversion secrets series inside of the code. So the next few modules inside of the code are going to be all about taking leads and converting them to deals. Okay, so today we're going to talk about specifically about qualification. Okay, on the next module, module 5, we're going to be talking about underwriting the deals, right? How do you decide what you should offer? How do you decide what the property's worth? How do you decide what you think you can sell the property for? And all those things go hand in hand, okay? And then in module 6, we're going to talk about how you make offers. Number 7 how you maximize your profit on each one of these deals when you're working with the seller. And then in module 8, we'll be wrapping up our seller conversion secrets series with how to net the fish, okay, which is when you get that contract ink. It's one thing to come to a verbal agreement with the seller. It's a whole other thing to have it hit the whiteboard. You've got a contract. That contract is as good as equity, whether that means it's $10,000 or $50,000 to your bank account, because now you have a contract to purchase that property with substantial equity, and you can literally turn around and convert that contract to green paper, right, to dollars. So I'm really excited, guys. So without further ado, there are 4 types. You guys are writing notes. Now, again, this replay will be available for you guys to watch inside of the code. But if you're taking notes right now, and I recommend kind of jotting down some notes as you go through this, you'll retain a lot more if you write down notes as you hear. But guys, there's 4 types of calls, okay, inside of converting leads to deals in wholesale real estate. Now, the first type of call is the qualification call. Okay, so in other words, you've got a new lead. You want to talk to that lead. You want to figure out why they're selling, when they're selling, what the situation is, what's going on. If possible, you want to figure out how much money they want for the property. Okay, but more often than not, you're not going to find out on the first call. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They try to just, well, what do you want for the property? Well, we can't pay that. Here's our offer, right? And then they try to just bulldoze their way through it to get their offer accepted, or they just throw out the lead and say, oh, that's a retail lead, and they're done. So the qualification call, guys, is so important, because when you understand why they want to sell and when they want to sell and what's going on with the property and how they're thinking and who they've talked to and all these things, okay, now you've got a chance at closing the gap between retail and wholesale and coming to a deal, right? Hopefully way closer to the wholesale price, so you get a real profitable contract. So we'll talk more about that inside the profitability module. But guys, the qualification call is everything. I'm telling you right now, it's never about the money. Okay, now obviously money has to be agreed upon on every single deal, right? But if the seller, all they want is money, 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 right? They're going to be a retail seller. But you need to know what's going on with their situation, what they want, what the occupancy status is, what all is going on. We call that cracking the shell, to know if, well, they want a retail price, but we can educate them and we can convert them to a wholesale deal, or they want retail price. They don't care how long it's going to take. They're willing to list it with the realtor. They're willing to put money and time and sweat and energy and frustration into it, in which case now you can move on and not worry about that lead and move on to the next one. Okay, so that's the qualification call. That's what we're going to talk about today. And then in the next 3 parts of this series, we're going to also go over, like I said, the second type of call, which is making offers. Okay, now typically you're going to call back and make the offer. You're going to go on the appointment and make the offer. I'll talk more about that later, but I recommend that you are going to want to make it over the phone. Okay, there's a lot more leverage in it. You save a lot more time. And if done properly, you're going to build more gross profit doing it that way. Now, you're still going to go to the property later, don't get me wrong, but I have found through experience it's much, much better to actually make the offer over the phone. All right, so you got the qualification call, you've got the offer call, then you've got closing the deal. Now, what closing the deal is, you've already talked about your offer and what they wanted, and you've negotiated and all that kind of stuff. Okay, now, we're going to get that fish in the boat. We're going to get the signed contract back. So that's a lot different than, oh yeah, well, I sold a house today. Oh, you did? Yeah, I mean, I offered $115 to the seller, and they said that sounds great, and I sent them the contract. They said they'd send it back to me. Well, do you have the contract back? No, they said they'd probably sign it tonight or tomorrow. Well, you're probably not going to need that contract, because they're probably taking that and they're calling other investors trying to get more money, right? So when you get to a verbal deal, you want to get that fish in the boat. You want it locked and loaded and signed, and you're calling the seller. And so we'll go all over that and in this series towards the end. But it's important to understand the difference between the qualification call, the offer call, the close the deal call, right? And the 4th type of seller conversion call would be a follow-up call. So a follow-up call is, you talk to somebody. More often than not, if it's going to be turned into a follow-up sequence with the seller, you shouldn't be making an offer. Okay, and I'll get into all that when we get into those modules within this series inside of the code. But right now, what I want you to understand is that there's 4 types of calls. You're going to qualify the seller. You're going to make offers. You're going to lock and load that contract and get it back in, have it hit the whiteboard, and you're going to make follow-up calls. And a follow-up call usually is just staying in touch with the seller, keeping rapport and trust, and giving them information and all those things really high, so that when they're ready to make a decision, you're the easy decision. That's what a follow-up call is. So we're going to dive into, guys, the qualification call. And this is, in my opinion, the most important part of the whole process, because you're going to spend 80% of your time talking to leads in this business, qualifying sellers, okay? Negotiating with them, following up with them, getting the contract in the boat, right? All those things, they take time, but it's only going to be about 20% of your time, okay? You're going to spend a ton of time qualifying the sellers and going over the qualification sheet, which is what we're going to go dive deep into here in a minute with my 9-step seller qualification process. Now, this isn't just something I put together for the code. This is literally the exact qualification sheet that my team uses to write every single contract that comes into our business. This is a sheet that I've used for years in my business. And it was developed because I'd go, oh, I forgot to ask this, or, oh, I don't know how to ask this. And then I implemented it right into the process. Or I'd get off the phone with the seller that I was on the phone for. Maybe some of you guys have done the same thing. You're on the phone with the seller for 20 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour and a half, and you get off the phone and you're like, oh my gosh, if I would have just asked them I wouldn't have had to spend all that time with them, right? You don't want to spend an hour with someone because you're thinking they're such a hot deal. So you're like, you're building rapport, you're talking about the weather and all these things, thinking, well, this is going to be a deal, so it's worth my time to sit here and listen to them and to talk about all these things that are not really that important, because I want them to trust me. I want to get this deal. And you're like, oh, well, if I would have just asked them, and then, 45 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes into them, you ask them, well, like, so when do you want to actually move? And they're like, well, maybe in like 2 years. And you're like, I wish I would have asked them right up front, like, well, when do you want to move, right? Because then I would have known, like, not talk to them about the weather all day, right? I could move on to the next lead and get that deal. This one's just going to be a follow-up lead. Andy says the sheet in CCOS is a tad bit different than the one you have for the code. Which one do you use? Use the one that's in the code. It's the same sheet, Andy. It's the exact same process. It's just that we've added things even up in the last 6 months. Actually, we just made one little tweak a couple of weeks ago, and I'll get to that when we get to it. But it's the exact same process, right? So if you watch that video inside of CCOS, Andy, this is the exact same thing. You're not going to be doing anything different. It's just that this updated sheet is going to be easier to use. Some of the things that I probably talked about when I went over that inside of CCOS, we've now actually written. So for example, it used to just say greeting, right, on step number 1. Now it says greeting in bold. It says, I just walked into the office. Can I get the address from you again to pull up my notes, right? So we literally just made it that much easier for our acquisitions people to use. And so for all you guys using it, we'll make it that much easier for you as well. Like, I've used the same sheet forever, and there's little things where I was like, well, I just know by nature, like when I get to here, this is exactly what I say. And then I was like, wait a minute. Like, so when I get to the value proposition, I would always tell our story. And then I was like, wait a minute, maybe I should just write on there next to value proposition, tell our story. And then that would help, as I'm training my acquisitions guys. So cool. So guys, 80% of qualification, or I'm sorry, of talking to sellers is going to be in qualifying new leads. If you don't have enough leads, go back to module 3, watch that, implement CCOS, and that's going to solve your leads problem. There's other things you can do to get more leads as well, but CCOS is by far the game changer in this whole industry. Now, before you can qualify a lead, you got to contact the lead. Okay, now if I counted the contact calls as another type of call, there'd be 5 calls. We'd have contact, then qualify, then offer, then close the deal, and or follow up. But the reason I don't call contact a type of call is that, if you contact them, they answer, you're on the qualification call. Or if you leave a message and they call you back, you're on the qualification call. But before you can qualify the seller, you got to get them live on the phone, right? So if it's cold calling on steroids and they call back in and they say, Josh, I got your message. Yeah, I'm interested in selling my house. But you don't answer those incoming live calls, right? Because you have hundreds of calls coming in per day. You couldn't physically answer them. Then you're calling back live and now you're trying to get a hold of them. If they don't answer, right? How many times do you call them? Do you leave a message, right? That's part of the contact process. And it's the same thing with direct mail. If somebody calls in from direct mail, you're on the other line and you're not able to answer it, well, now you got to call them back and still try to get them back on the phone live. What happens if you're doing internet leads and the lead comes across via email or through your website, right? You got to call them and get them on the phone live. So guys, you should always have a contact ratio of 90% plus of all the leads coming in. So if you get 10 pay-per-click leads that come in your business, you should be able to get at least 9 of them back on the phone. If you got 10 cold calling on steroids leads come into your voicemail, you should be able to get a hold of at least 9 out of 10. right? Now, 80% I can live with. Under 80%, we got some work to do. We're not doing something right, okay? Same thing with direct mail. Of all the calls that come in that you don't answer for whatever reason, you're on an appointment, you're on the other line, you're at church, whatever it is, right? You should be able to get a hold of at least 80%, if not 90% of those people back on the phone. Now, why not 100? Well, the reality of it is some people, they're going to call in, and because you just got them at the right mood or something happened or whatever, and they're not ready again, or they're not really ready to yet. Or it could be that you say something wrong when you call them back that kind of turns them off. Right? So you want to have an actual process to how you make sure that you're getting a hold of every single seller that could be a potential deal. And that's what we call the contact process. So this is before the qualification sheet. We're going to spend most of our time today going over this qualification sheet. But before you can do that, you got to get them on the phone live. Okay? So if you're taking notes, guys, the contact process is on all leads that don't come in and you answer live, right? You want to call them at least 3 times per day and leave at least 1 message per day for 3 days in a row. Okay, so if a lead comes in, I call them, they don't answer, this is the first attempt, typically I'm gonna leave them a message. And tonality is huge. You wanna sound optimistic, you wanna sound easy to talk to, you wanna give them hope for gain. So if somebody calls in via cold calling on steroids and I get a message that says, hey Josh, this is Bill, you called about my house, let's talk, right? I'm gonna call back Bill, and if he doesn't answer, I'm saying, hey Bill, this is Josh, I'm so sorry for the phone tag. Real excited to talk to you. It's a perfect time right now if you're looking to sell, because I am really kind of up against the wall here, and I can probably get you an offer you're going to love. Anyways, here's my cell phone number. Give me a shout back if I've been out and about, but I should be able to answer on this number. Excited to talk to you, right? And so I'm giving him hope for gain, kind of said it's a good time for him. Like he's thinking like, oh, maybe this guy's got some type of situation. I better hear his offer. Maybe he can offer more than the other people I've talked to, right? Or whatever, okay? But now if he doesn't call me back, and I called him, let's say it's in the morning, then in the afternoon, I'm calling him again. And if he doesn't answer, I'm typically not going to leave a message that time. Why? I don't want to seem over anxious. I don't mind if he got my message and then he sees I called him again. That just shows that I'm serious and I want to do business with him. I'm not going to keep leaving him messages because now he might think I'm kind of annoying. So if I call him in the morning, I leave a message. I call him again in the afternoon. He doesn't answer. I don't leave a message. Now at the end of the day before I go home, I'm going to call him a third time. Okay? And if he doesn't answer, I'm probably not going to leave a message that time either. Okay? So now he might see 2 missed calls, but that's okay. He's just like, man, this guy's pretty serious, right? But it's not that big of a deal. Now on the second or the third time, I'm also going to attempt a text. Hey, Bill, or hey, whoever it is. Hey, this is Josh. We play phone tag. Sorry, here's my cell phone. Give me a shout if you get a chance, or if text is easier, right? 1 of 2 things is going to happen. Either, or 1 of 3 things. Either they're going to respond, which great. Now you can hopefully, hey, when can you talk in 5 minutes or whatever, get them on the phone so you can do the qualification process. Or they're not going to respond, but at least now you've got a second avenue out to them so that they can call you back. And it's different than 2 voicemails. It's voicemail and a text, so it doesn't seem too over eager, right? Or it's going to bounce. You're going to get a text back that says, number 999 whatever is a landline and cannot accept text messages. And now you can put in your notes, tried to text, it's a landline. So now maybe if you don't get a hold of them later, you can look up for a cell phone, or at a minimum, you don't have to keep trying to text them every day. That's day 1. Now, if you do that, you call them 3 times, you leave them 1 message, you attempt to text, you're probably going to get a hold of at least half of your leads within 24 hours. They're going to call you back that evening, or they're going to call you back. They might call you back between the first call and the second call, right? Or between the second and third call. You're going to get a hold of half of them either the same day or the next day, right? Half plus, okay? Now you get to day 2. They didn't call me back last night, and they haven't called me yet this morning, so I'm calling them again. Now, you can leave a message on the first call again, or you can just let it ring, and then when you call them again, around lunchtime, leave a message that time. And then you're going to try them again the third time. Now, if you start getting to the second to third call that you're attempting to contact them on the second day, and you still haven't heard from them, they haven't picked up, I recommend doing a quick Google search, doing a quick social media search, and finding out, can you get an email address for them? Can you find them on social media? If you can, hey, this is Josh. I've been trying to get a hold of you about your house. Sorry for the phone tag. Want to make sure you have my cell phone. Hope you don't mind that I reached out to you on Facebook, whatever it is, right? Now, day 3, you're going to do the same thing again, okay? And again, guys, if you got a hold of, say you got 4 leads today, and you did what I said to do on day 1, you're probably going to get a hold of 2 to 3 people on day 1, if not all 4. But if you get to day 2 and you do it again, you're probably going to get a hold of the other person you didn't get a hold of. Day 3, same thing. If you get to the end of day 3, right? And then, or if you get all the way through that sequence, then day 4 or the end of day 3, you should be leaving a message that's like, hey, I'm really sorry. I don't want to bother you. If you could just give me a shout back, let me know. If you don't have any interest, that's fine. And you might even say something like, I'm going to be away from my phone for a while, but if you could just leave me a message and let me know, I don't want to bother you. You're making it easy for them to give you an out. So if they're really like, no, I really wasn't interested in selling for, a year or 2. I really just thought I'd see what it was all about. But you know what I mean? You're giving them an easy way to call you back, because the reason they might not be calling you back is because they were just kind of in the mood that day, right? But now they're like, you kept calling them. They're like, oh crap, this person's really serious. They really want to buy my house and I don't really want to sell it yet, right? So you want to give them an opportunity to just say that. At least now you know, and you can say, great, when you are ready, save my number. Maybe I'm going to be selling another house in a few months and free up some cash. So please save my number, put it on your fridge. And when you are ready, call me first, because I think you'll love my offer and you'll be able to save fees, and you can pick your move out date. It'll be the easiest, sale ever, right? So guys, to summarize, 3 calls per day with at least 1 voicemail for 3 days in a row. And you're going to attempt to text day 1. If that goes through, then you'd attempt to text day 2 and day 3 as well, right? And also, if you get to day 2 and they're not answering, somewhere midway of day 2, look them up on social media, try to find an email. You guys, if you just do that, you're probably going to get a hold of 90% of your leads, at least 80% of your leads for sure. And if maybe the voicemail you left on day 1 kind of turned them off, well, you're going to leave another message day 2 and day 3, and right? So hopefully something else kind of brought to the surface. So now you don't have to kill yourself about that 10% of people that never called you back. They probably just weren't ready to sell yet, because you really put them, we call this putting them through the gauntlet, right? But that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying to contact them forever, right? So now you can put them on an auto follow-up and send them a cold calling on steroids message, 3 times a month forever until you hear from them. Or you could send them a handwritten letter. Even if you don't have the budget for direct mail, you can at least, hey, Bill, you had called, I called you, you would call me back, been trying to get a hold of you, don't want to bother you, right? And try that. You can even just drive by the house if it's convenient, depending on your lead flow and the proximity of the location, okay? So guys, that's my contact process. And it looks like we've got a question here from Andy. Do you follow up that voicemail you leave with a text? Yeah. So like I was saying, yeah, we do. And you can do it on the first call too. So like if day 1, call 1, you call them, they don't answer. Hey, this is Andy. You had called me back. Sorry for the phone tag, but I'm the one that had called, interested in buying your house, and you called me back. Can't wait to talk to you. I'll be around all day today. Here's my cell phone number, right? Then you could send a text too. Hi, this is Andy. Sorry for the phone tag. I'm the one that called about the house. If text is easier, let me know. Right? Something like that. So you can do it on the first attempt, but I like to just leave a message, not send a text. And then if I get to the afternoon, evening, or morning, day 2, that's typically when we'll start to attempt the text messages. Now, also, it depends on the list you're talking to. If it's somebody that's younger, I would say definitely attempt to text right away, right? But if you're cold calling or cold calling on steroids and it's like 65 years and up lists, then I would probably not attempt to text until later on. You really want to get that person live on the phone. Pay-per-click leads, 100%, you're sending a text right away. So a pay-per-click lead comes in, you should be calling that lead within 5 minutes. And if they don't answer, you're leaving them a message. I'm so excited to talk to you. Please call me back right away. And I would even recommend on pay-per-click calling them again within 15 minutes. You don't need to necessarily leave them a second message, but call them again. You might call them 3 times in the first hour. Because the reason they might not have answered is because they're on the phone with one of your competitors. A lot of people that go to pay-per-click, they're going to hit 1, 2, 3, right? The top 3 people on Google. And if you were 3 and they hit number 1 and number 1 did their job right, they're already on the phone with them, right? So you want to be super aggressive with that. All right, guys, so that's the contact process. If you just do that, like what I'm talking about, guys, you're going to get a hold of most of your leads, right? 80 to 90% minimum. All right. Now, getting back to this is a little more general. Guys, this whole thing we're doing, this whole wholesale real estate thing, it's a numbers game. Right? You're never going to get 10 leads that come into your business and are 10 wholesale deals in a row. I mean, never say never, right? There's always exceptions, but it's incredibly unlikely. So one of the things to understand is that it is a marketing game, okay? And the importance of marketing, again, go back and watch module 3 where we talk about prospecting versus marketing. We talk about different ways of marketing. Guys, leads are the blood of your business, and marketing is the heart that pumps those leads. So if you don't have leads coming in, you're kind of screwed. If you only have 3 leads coming in per week, by the numbers, you only probably have 1 deal coming through your business per month. And if you're not good at conversion, you're probably going to miss that 1 deal. If you're not great at conversion, you might only be getting 1 deal out of every 3 deals that are possible to get. So it might be 3 months before you get a deal, right? And this is the reason so many people burn out of this business, or they say this business is hard, everybody's retail, right? So what you want to aim for if you're brand new is that you should be able to convert. Number one, you need to have marketing on, not just prospecting, but marketing. Now, if you have to prospect your butt off until you can get your first deal and then start marketing, then do that. And I gave examples of many things you can do that are lower cost but take a lot more energy in module 3 to get going until you get your first deal, and then you can turn on marketing. So I go through all that in module 3. So if you guys are just tuning into the code now or in the future, right, and you haven't watched module 3, you need to go back and watch module 3. But beyond that, guys, it is a numbers game. Not every lead is going to be a possible wholesale deal. Not even every single lead would be a possible deal, even if you could help them sell retail, right? So typically 1 in 30 deals is like anybody should be able to get. Right? Or I'm sorry, 1 in 30 leads. So if you got 30 leads coming into your business and you're a brand new wholesaler and you really don't know what to say, you should be able to get at least 1 deal. And if you don't, then you're in the right spot because we're going to help you out with this. Okay? What you want to be shooting for is 1 in every 10, which means that if you're brand new and you got 30 leads that come into your business and you get 1 deal and I get those same 30 leads, I'm probably getting 3 deals. Okay? So 1 in 30 is going to be a little easier to get. Okay? They probably have a situation that's very obvious, right? Like, I just evicted my tenants. They trashed the property. I'm so stressed out. I just want to be done with this, right? We had a lead came into our business last week. This was cold calling on steroids lead. And she goes, she'd owned the property since 1980. She goes, I'm 76 years old. And right at the beginning of this thing, on asking, we go, hey, how much do you want for this property? Our acquisitions guy goes, how much do you want for this property? And she goes, 162. And we're like, if it was a fire property, we're going to be able to wholesale this thing for 10 grand, right? That's very unlikely. That was probably like a 1 in 100 type lead. Okay. But they are going to happen. But that type of situation would be one of the 1 in 30s, right? Now, how do you get to 3 out of every 30 or 1 out of every 10, right? 3 out of 30 is the same thing as 1 out of 10. You do that by being able to close the gap. Let me tell you a little secret right now. Every single seller wants a retail price for their house, and every single seller wants the convenience and the non-stress factor of doing a wholesale deal and selling it to a cash buyer. So your job is to bridge the gap between that retail price they want, give them the easy button, but be able to bridge that gap and what they're walking away with. Okay, and we're going to get into this in depth over the seller conversion series inside of the code. And it all starts with qualifying the seller correctly. You're not just finding out information about them. You're not just building rapport with them. You're also finding out how they think and what they know. And based on how they think and what they know, that's going to allow you to educate them. And when you educate them, you can close that gap. Now, when you educate them, are they listening or are they being stubborn? That might be a time thing. Maybe they're just not ready to hear it yet. Maybe they will be, but if you say it with confidence, maybe they'll chew on it when you get off the phone and then you follow up with them in a couple of days and then they'll be like, okay, that makes more sense. Or maybe they'll call you, maybe they'll be real stubborn, but if you're confident, maybe they'll call you back tonight and go, well, I was thinking about that, right? Or, so you got to understand the psychology of the seller, and you do that with this qualification sheet. All right, so it's a numbers game, guys. So on that note, guys, the qualification process, this first call, leads to setting up gross profit on your deal. Again, if you're just asking them, hey, what do you want for your property? You're shotgunning an offer to them. You're trying to bulldoze them to take your offer. You're going to be lucky if you get 1 in 100 deals, let alone make any money on that deal. So remember I said you might be starting and just kind of, finding your way through this whole thing. You don't really have a process or understanding of exactly how to crack their shell and how to educate them and how to build value in what you do and how to bridge the gap between wholesale and retail. You're going to be lucky if you get the deal. But even if you get the deal, I'm probably going to make 2 to 3 times as much on that same deal when I talk to that same seller. This is a good thing to write down right here, guys. The easiest profit to find in your wholesale business is creating more revenue on the deals that are already coming in. Okay, I want to repeat that because it's so important. We drilled on this in Dallas. The easiest profit to find in your business is creating more profit on the deals that are already coming in. Okay? If 1 out of every 10 sellers is a potential deal, then when you get to that 1 seller, you should be able to make the maximum amount of profit that will still allow them to be happy and sign the deal with you. If you're giving up profit that you don't need to be, right, then you're just throwing money away. Okay? So it's very important to maximize gross profit per deal. And you're not going to be able to do that unless you understand why the seller is selling, how they're thinking, what knowledge they have of the wholesale process, what knowledge they have of the retail process. How anxious are they to sell retail or not sell retail, right? Don't be afraid to ask a seller, well, why haven't you listed the property yet? Well, have you talked to realtors yet? These are important things to know. Because they might tell you something like, well, yeah, we're probably going to list it with the realtor. Actually, we have an appointment tomorrow. That's a retail flag. Okay, it doesn't mean you're not going to keep going through the process and you're not still going to make an offer potentially. You're not going to try to get a deal, but it does tell you that, like, well, there's a chance they might be retail, right? It tells you how they're thinking. Or you might say, well, I haven't listed it with the realtor yet. And they might say, I don't want to list with the realtor. We're kind of nervous about that. You know, we don't really know that they'll have our best interest. Or they might say, you know, we don't know who to talk to. We don't really trust realtors. They might just say, I don't like realtors. Realtors are a pain in the butt. They want to make money off me for nothing. Or they might say, I talked to a realtor and the realtor told me I need to do all this stuff to my house and I don't want to do that, right? So don't be afraid to ask those questions. Those are going to tell you what's going on with the seller, and that's going to allow you to be able to connect with them, to crack their shell, to educate them better, etc. If they tell you, you know, well, yeah, I don't really want to list with the realtor told me I need to do all this stuff to my house, and then later you're talking about price and they won't budge on their price, you can be like, well, look, that's a retail price. I mean, we talked about, you know, maybe if you listed it with the realtor, you could get that price, but, you know, remember the realtor told you you would need to update your bathroom and you need to do these things. And they're like, oh yeah, right? Well, if you just make shotgun an offer to that person and then you're like, well, sorry, that's what I'll pay. I mean, right? You're not going deep. You need to go deep with the sellers, okay? So you don't want to rush through this process. This process is already designed to have you get right to the bottom line in the correct order and build value in what you do and educate them and build gross profit if it in fact is a deal. Okay, but you don't have to rush through this sheet. There's only nine things on here. Okay, so you should never be on the seller with the seller on a qualification call for more than, you know, maybe 20, 30 minutes. Not saying they won't never be longer, but if they are, it probably just means you're getting too into the weeds with them, right? So you can let them talk a little bit. People love to talk about themselves. The easiest way to get rapport with somebody is to let them talk about themselves. Everybody is, by human nature, typically likes to talk about themselves, but you want to stay on the process. Because if they start talking about other things that are not related to selling their house, their head's going elsewhere. It's going to be really hard to bring them back and get to the deal. So it's going to be very important. All right, guys. So qualification process leads to setting up gross profit. You guys see me keep looking at here because I want to stay right on track and kind of like we do on this call, right? And make sure that I'm explaining this stuff to you guys effectively so that you can go back and take this into your business and make a whole bunch of money with it. All right, guys. So there's a few keys to the qualification process. It's going to help you convert more deals. And these keys are going to help you on the offer process. These keys are going to help you when you go on appointments. These keys are going to help you when you negotiate, when you're educating your buyers, when you're following up, right? Okay, so empathy. Empathy is understanding where the seller's coming from. Doesn't mean you always agree with their position, but you empathize with them, right? So they might say, well, I really just want a retail price and I really don't want to list with the realtor or fix up my house or do any of that kind of stuff and I don't want to pay fees. Doesn't mean that you're going to tell them that that's realistic, but it does mean that you're going to show them care and compassion. And you're like, look, I understand that you're trying to get as much money for your house as you possibly can. I'm no different. I always, when I sell something, I want to get as much as I possibly can. Okay. But I just want to help you avoid frustration and understand that, look, even if you got that top number, you're not going to walk away with that top number. I mean, I know you said that your neighbor sold their house for 150. But, you know, I'm running the numbers here. Your neighbor probably only walked away with about 115. So I know you said you thought my offer was super low at 90, but really maybe I can come up a little bit and we can kind of bridge that gap. But really, we're not looking at 90 versus 150, right? Really, we're talking about 90 versus 115. I might be able to meet you up a little, right? That's showing empathy. You're showing that you care. You're showing that you understand where they're coming from. You don't have to agree with their situation or their thought process or where they're coming from, but you're showing them that you understand and that you care. That's empathy. All right. Now, the second key is going to be tonality. Somebody talks really fast and loud like me, I can get away with talking really fast and loud back at it. If somebody goes, oh, hell no, I'm not accepting that offer, you can say, why not? It's a great offer. Right. But if somebody goes, oh, well, I'm going to have to think on that. Right. You're not going to go, oh, what do you mean you have to think on that? Right. So tonality, you want to mirror kind of their tone. Right. Typically, you want to be one octave above them if you're trying to raise them up and one octave below them if you want to slow them down. Does that make sense? So if somebody's like, oh, hell no, that's a horrible offer. Don't be afraid to go, what the heck do you mean it's a horrible offer? You're just one octave above them, right? Don't go, well, what do you mean? I'd be like 10 octaves above them, Okay, so mirroring tonality, you can be an octave low, above or below, right? Maybe you want to slow that person down. He goes, oh, no way I would take that offer. Maybe you go, what do you mean? Right? You're one octave below. Okay, so tonality is huge. And people want to talk to and do business with people that are like them. It's another just human characteristic. So let them talk about themselves, right? Mirror them. Okay, show them empathy. Use tonality. You want to be positive and confident with your tone in everything you do. Okay, and when you're confident and you're positive and you're empathetic, all of these things, and you show knowledge, all these things will build credibility to them about yourself, and they're going to want to do business with you instead of doing business with the other people. They're going to trust you. They're going to like you. Okay. Another key is hope for gain. You want to give them hope for gain. Remember we talked about leaving a message and kind of saying something positive to increase the likeliness of them calling you back. Well, you want to do the same thing all throughout the process, even to the point of you get to the end of this sheet, and you don't want to just be like, and I'll get to this in the end, so this will make more sense as we go through this, but you don't want to get to the end of the sheet and be like, all right, well, cool, I'll call you back in 15 minutes, right? Like, okay, you're going to call me back in 15 minutes, right? And now maybe they don't even answer the phone. Like, well, what the heck? Like, all right, just leave me a message. But if you say, all right, sweet, so thank you so much for this information. Are you going to be home in the next 15, 20 minutes? Well, yeah, maybe. I think so. Why? Well, I'm going to run some quick numbers on this right now, and I'm going to see the most I can pay for your property. And no pressure at all. I don't do business with that way. I don't do business with people that are that way. So I'm going to call you back after I do my homework, and I'm going to let you know what I can pay. And if you like that number, I can send you a contract right away, or I can come shake your hand if you want to sign the contract in person. Okay. And if you hear that number and you want to think about it, that's totally cool. And if you hear that number and you don't like it, then no worries at all. I won't give you any pressure. And hopefully it at least helps you make a decision and kind of know where you're at. Does that sound good? And they're gonna be like, yeah, that sounds great. Right? You're giving them hope for gain. You're also making it easier for them to make sure that they pick up the phone when you call them back and make that offer in 20 minutes. Okay, but hope for gain is everything. You're going to use hope for gain when they're not ready to sell their house yet, and you don't want to make an offer yet, because if you do make an offer at 90 and they want 150 and they're not ready to sell for 6 months anyways, guess what? They're never going to answer the phone again, and they're going to think you're an idiot when they are ready. So that now in 6 months when they are ready to sell the phone, and you might have had a chance at getting it at 90 or 115 or whatever would be a wholesale deal, right? They're never going to talk to you, and they're just going to think you're a moron, and you're not going to have any credibility. So you would use hope for gain then to be like, you know what? Like, sounds like you're not ready for 6 months. I need to buy something right now, so I don't really want to give you an offer right now, because if I do, that would be based on what I can pay today, and I might be able to pay you more in 6 months. But it looks like we might be selling another property here in a few months. So will you please keep my number and call me first? Because if I do have the money available still, you have a house that's in the exact area that I like, I'm going to make you my best offer. And if the timing's right that I'm looking to buy and you're looking to sell, I mean, you're going to get more money in your pocket, because you're not going to have to pay fees and realtors and costs. And you're not going to have any stress. It's going to be the easiest sale of your life, right? That's giving them hope for gain. And then another key to this process is setting the call back or setting the appointment at the end of the call. Okay, so when you get to the end of this, whether you're going to make the offer in person or back over the phone, you want to basically set them up like, hey, you're going to be home in 20 to 30 minutes after I do my homework. And if they're like, well, no, you caught me, I'm on my way out to the door right now to go to the store. I'm like, okay, great. Do you have a cell phone? Or better yet, when will you be back? Right? And I'm like, well, I'll be back in an hour. Okay, great. So would you like me to call you back in an hour? Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, awesome. And this is your home phone or your cell phone, right? So you want to really, like, that's going to help you, because you don't want to get talk to a seller and you're like, oh my gosh, they're looking to move next month. They know where they're moving. They don't want to deal with the realtor, all these things that sound super hot. And then you're like playing phone tag with them for 3 days. It's the worst thing possible. So you want to build value, give them hope for gain at the end of the call, and set that appointment. Okay. Even if you're just calling them back to make the offer in 20 to 30 minutes, that's still an appointment. It's like a phone appointment, right? To go over the offer. Now, a lot of times you might get through this and then you realize when you're done, you're like, you know what? I'm not even going to make an offer, because they said they're probably not really ready. They weren't looking to sell, but they said they would sell for the right price. But the price they want's like way too high. You're just going to call them back in 20 minutes and go, you know what? I looked at this. Unfortunately, that's way more than I could pay. Honestly, I don't think you'd get that from even if you listed it on the market. Right now, if they want, they're like, maybe they're just hiding their cards and they really would take less, and they're going to say, well, it's okay. Well, what would you offer? Right. So we'll get to that later. But the point that I want to make is you can get to the end of this and you can say, okay, great. We'll be out there tomorrow at 9 o'clock, or I'll call you in 30 minutes with an offer. And then you can call them back and say, you know what, I know we're supposed to meet with you tomorrow, but it looks like really like what you're asking is way too high. So you don't necessarily have to be making an offer, but when you get here, you just want to make sure that you're going to be able to get it, talk to them again, whether it's on that phone appointment for the offer in 30 minutes or at the house tomorrow, right? Just set that, and then you can always call them back. Now, as you get experience, you might get to the point where you're just going right to it. And you're like, well, you know what? I would love to take a look at this, all that kind of stuff, but you're just way too high. And they might know they're too high and go, well, that's okay. Will you still make me an offer? That's what we call they're coming back to you. So you're pulling away from them in hopes that they'll come back to you. And if they don't come back to you, that's just kind of a retail flag. Remember I said a retail flag that, yeah, they really do just want retail. Okay. And they're probably one of the 9 out of 10 that's not going to do a deal with you right now. Okay. So it all comes down to every single lead you're going to talk to. There's 2 things that you want to figure out. Number 1, are they a real seller? And a real seller means they're actually willing to sell right now. They're actually willing to commit. Doesn't matter if it's a retail price or a wholesale price, just they're ready to actually commit and sign a contract right now at some price. That's number 1. And then number 2 is, are they a possible wholesale seller? Will they potentially sell it for less than the retail value? Okay. And a lot of times they're going to be you're going to confirm that they are a real seller, but they're going to say that they want retail. And now your job, like we talked about, is to close that gap and turn that into a wholesale deal. When you can do that, you're going to get 1 out of 10 deals and not 1 out of 25 or 1 out of 30, which is probably the industry average, even of experienced wholesalers, right? A lot of people that are unexperienced might be 1 in 50 or 1 in 100. So I want to get you to 1 in 30 like this if you're brand new. And I want to give you a process so you can practice every day on every single lead. That's going to save you time, save you frustration, help you get as much money on every single deal as you possibly can, and move you towards being a 1 out of 10 closer as quickly as possible. When you do those things, your life's going to change. You're going to make a lot of money. Ricky says, do you do anything with retail leads to monetize them? So if you go back and you watch modules 1 and 2, I talk a lot about retail versus wholesale. The short answer, Ricky, is that I don't, it depends on your business model. In my business, no, I don't. Now, I've been licensed for 10 years, but here's the thing. If you do retail business and if you do wholesale marketing and you're trying to get wholesale deals, but you're also willing to take the listing, you're gonna assume people are probably retail quicker than you should, and you're gonna miss out on some wholesale deals. And a wholesale deal, you're gonna make 3 times the money for a tenth the work. So that's really what you want to focus on. But everything that we do in wholesale marketing works for retail. So I've said for years, like if realtors would market like their wholesale buyers, they would get so much more business. Maybe they're not actually going to buy the house cash, but if they offer, hey, we want to make an offer on your property, the people will actually call them. When realtors call and they're like, hey, yeah, I'm interested in listing your house, or I've gotten in bet, right? Like people are like, But when they're like, hey, I want to buy your house, I want to make you a cash offer, they're much more likely to respond. So anyways, in short, I don't really look to monetize this. You can sell the lead. There's a whole conversation that can go into this. But the important thing to understand is that if you spend a lot of time trying to monetize retail leads instead of trying to close more wholesale deals and take those deals that you're closing wholesale and maximize your profit on those. Remember, I said that the easiest place to find more profit for your business is in the existing deals that you're already doing. So you get lost in the weeds trying to convert all that retail stuff because you're like, well, 9 out of 10 of these are retail. I got to do something with this, right? The opportunity cost is going to be huge. And you might think you're crushing it out of the park because you're like, well, we referred 10 deals last quarter and we made $30,000 in referral fees or in listing commissions. And I'm like, well, cool. We converted, 3 times as many deals as you, which means we made like an extra 150,000, right? So there's a reason why wholesale real estate is so awesome, and you can make a lot of money in retail real estate. So if you want to create a team, you want to go into retail. I'm not like saying that that's a bad thing to do, but no, I would say that's something you should get to way later in your business when you're doing 6 figures consistently per month. In the meantime, focus on wholesale. Okay, and to give one quick example of that, we had a deal. It was about 2 years ago. Guy calls in, he wants $1 million for his house, and I look it up. I'm like, retail's probably on this house is probably 8 to 9, and I was like, and we offer him 6. But we could tell, like, he knew when he was moving, he knew where he was moving. It's really hard to understand. Most people probably wouldn't even be able to talk to him in person, let alone on the phone. And it took forever just to get through this and to call back and make the offer. He had Parkinson's. He could barely talk. We found out later his wife was actually the driver. She was like the decision maker, but she wanted him to do all the talking. She wanted him to do the negotiating and all that kind of stuff. She was the one that was going to sit back and make the decision. This was an awesome couple. They were super cool. But he wanted $1 million. We offered him 600. He's like, no, it's not going to work. He's like, I'd maybe take 950. We're like, your house is worth like 8 to 9. You want 950? There's no way. He was just holding his cards to his chest. I get off the phone and I go, and we're, like I said, we don't do a lot with retail leads because we know we can make so much more wholesale. And I go, and I call up my buddy Matt, who's a really good retail listing agent here in the Phoenix area. And I go, hey, Matt, dude, you might want to, or I send him a voice text. I'm like, you might want to call this guy. He wants 900,000 for his house, or he wants $1 million or 950 for his house. But realistically, I think he would take a little bit. I think that, he just wants to get as much as he can for it. It looks like retail's, 8 to 900. So he's not terribly far off. But I'm offering him 600. We're way far apart, but this guy's moving in a month to Michigan, where he's from, where his kids are. He's moving either way in a month. And this is a situation that's going on. Like, this guy's going to sell his house. It's just a matter of educating him, right? So just like we would close the gap to either to wholesale, you could also have to close the gap to get him to list the house. But I'm like, obviously he's probably not going to go from $1 million to 600, but he probably will go from $1 million to 850 or 900, in the next 30 days, because he definitely is going to want to sell this house. He might need to hear it from a couple other realtors that know $1 million's too high, but he's going to list the house. So I knew it was business. Literally, I send that voice text, and within 5 minutes, the guy calls me back. And he goes, well, so how quick would you be able to close? And how much earnest deposit would you be able to put down? And my ears are burning. I'm like, whoa, this guy's asking questions like he's considering my offer. I immediately call Matt back. I say, do not call this guy. I didn't think there was, but there's a chance this one might go wholesale. Okay, we wholesaled that deal. We ended up getting it under contract at $625,000. We wholesaled it for $690,000. What's that? What's the math on that? 625 to 690. Right? So $65,000 assignment fee. So how many, even though our referral commission might have been a few grand on that, how many of those would it have took to make 60 grand? And it would have took a lot longer for all the transaction to close. Okay, that's just a small example. Do you charge your realtor friend for cost on that lead? How does that work? So I don't want to get too into this, guys, because we're just getting lost in the weeds. Like, if that's something that you guys are looking to monetize your business on and you're already making 6 figures a month on wholesale, I'd be happy to jump on a coaching call with you guys if you guys wanted to schedule a coaching call and go into that. But the point is, guys, like, that is not going to be your highest and best use of time or leads. Okay. All right. So with that being said, guys, I think I talked about, you don't want to go straight to the offer. Okay. It's not about the money. Okay. It's about understanding the situation, understanding how they're thinking. You want to crack their shell, meaning you get rapport with them, but you also understand what they're trying to do, how they're processing information, what they're comparing your offer to, what they're comparing wholesale to retail and all their options. Okay. You don't want to offer everyone. Like we talked about, if they're not committed to selling their house now, right away they're like, well, no, I wouldn't sell my house now no matter what you offered me. You're not going to make an offer. Okay. You're going to take away, like we talked about, see if they come to you. Okay. Now, are they a real seller? You've confirmed that, yes, they are a real seller. They would commit it if they could get their price, but are they a possible wholesale deal? Okay. If it's no, you don't think they are a possible wholesale deal, like Al, or was his name Al? I think his name is Al, the guy that wanted $1 million and I'm offering him 600, right? I'm like, okay. And he's like, heck no, right? Then I'm pulling away. And I'm probably not even making an offer on Al. I'm probably just going, when I called him, I don't remember the exact call, but I'm sure I probably called him back and go, Al, $1 million is way too much. Now, when I went through the sheet, I might have been like, that looks high, but I'm probably not being like, whoa, that's way too much. I want to give him hope for game and call him back with some ammo. Hey, Al, I know you said, right, I want to show empathy. I know you said you want $1 million. So I was looking, nothing in your neighborhood sold for $1 million. It looks like some of these that have been 2019 remodeled, like those TV shows, they're decked out, are selling for like 8 to 900, most of those on the lower side. And I'm trying to show him empathy and educate him. And then I'm listening, like, is he saying like, yeah, I know, or whatever? Or is he like, well, no, I just want $1 million. Okay. But I'm not just going to, so I'm going to call him back when I look and I'm like, hey, look, so these houses are going for 8 to 900 fully remodeled. You said you had some dated floors, some other things. You're going to have all these realtor costs. So realistically, even if you sell it retail, you put money into it, you do all these things, you're probably not walking away with, even close to that. And then to see go, well, I still want to know your offer. That's him coming back to me. Or does he just go, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I want $1 million. Right now, I still might, even if he goes, well, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. No worries. You don't need to make an offer. That's good. I want my $1 million. I still might follow up with him in a week and go, hey, have you listed your house? Have you talked to anybody else? Right. Because as time goes on, people talk to other people. They think about what you said, right? And they start to close the gap for themselves because everybody's eventually going to actually sell their house, right? For the most part. And some people die in their house, but it's rare. So you want to see if they come to you. And And again, I said either way, you're going to let them know. Even if you think they're really high, you're going to set that call back, even if it's to call back and take away from them. Like they might be way high here and you know that, but you're still going to be like, let me take a look, because that shows empathy. It shows that you care. It shows that you're actually going to spend time on it. And then when you call them back and tell them they're way high, you can do it from a point of empathy and from educating them. And you can actually use data to be like, well, look, and I'm not saying get lost in the data. You don't want to start talking about like this household for this and add up to it. If you do that, it's probably they're a retail seller and they're really looking at everything to maximize their money. But you do want to be able to call them back and be like, well, nothing in the neighborhood sold for close to that, and say that, but you don't want to just say that right off the bat. So if you just say that right off the bat, they're going to be met with defense and they're going to be like, well, you just want to get this deal for super cheap. You don't care about what I want to do at all. So you want to show empathy. What's wholesale and wholesale on the other lead sheet? So we will get into wholesale and wholesale when we get into the offer process and underwriting the lead. So that all is coming in this series. Andy, it's a great question. So we will go all over that in depth, okay? But at this point right now, when we're qualifying the lead, wholesale and wholesale won't matter. Okay, on the back of the lead sheet, we'll go through all that kind of stuff. And that's all when we underwrite the deal and when we make the offer. So we will get there, I promise. All right, guys, so I am going to dive in right now to the 9-step process. So you guys should have this attachment that I emailed out to everybody before the live call. If you're watching this inside of the code, there's a button below where you can download this. And you guys print a bunch of them because every single lead that you talk to, you're going to want to use this sheet. All right, guys, so the stuff that is in italics at the very top and at the very bottom, the reason it's in italics is because these are not things you're going to ask the seller. So at the very top, let's just go through it. Campaign. That's so that you can track where the lead came from. So that for your marketing, you can track, did this campaign get me a lot of leads or a few leads? What was my cost per lead? That kind of stuff has nothing to do with qualifying the seller. The date is kind of so you can remember what day they called in at. So you can put that in your Podio for your follow-up notes later, etc. Right? Their name, so you know their name. Their phone number, their email, so you have their contact information to follow up with them later. You don't necessarily have to get their email right up off the bat. I prefer to always be talking to people over the phone live or on the appointment. So I don't really want to follow up via email a whole lot. You're not going to connect as much via email. Now, if you're a retail realtor, that'd be a little different, right? But you want to typically be connecting with them every single time you talk to them, even if it's just leaving them a message, right? You can use tonality and stuff like that. But email is going to be critical when you get the deal because you might send them the contract via email. And sometimes that's what they prefer. So I'm not saying you'll never use email, right? Yeah, Kevin Eckley says my sheet doesn't have a second page backside. That's because I don't want to get into that yet, right? So there in the modules that are coming up in this series, you will have the backside, okay? And I will, when we get through this series, I'll include a download a PDF that you can print that's front back side to have it all together. But right now, guys, we're only talking about the qualification call. So remember I talked about there's the qualification call, then there's the offer call, and there's getting the deal in the boat, right? Getting them to sign it. So those are all different steps in the process. We're talking all about the qualification call right now. It all starts with the qualification call. This is 80% of what you're going to do. And doing this correctly is going to allow you to get an awesome conversion and the maximum profit per deal possible. All right, so cool. All right, guys, so we talked about stuff in italics at the top. Likewise, the stuff at the bottom says bought when, how much did they pay, how much money did they put down, and how much do they owe. You don't want to ask them that stuff because you're going to lose rapport. If you say, well, how long have you owned the house? They immediately think that you're thinking, well, because if they've owned it for a long time, they have high equity, they're probably selling it for a lot more than they paid for it, whether they sell retail or wholesale. So when you say, when did you buy it? They think you're saying, well, you've owned this house for a long time, sell it to me for cheap, right? So you don't usually want to ask that. You also don't want to ask how much they paid for it because they're usually going to go, what does that matter? And they think that you're trying to say, well, you might have bought it for a lot less, so you should sell it to me for you're still making money, right? And give it away. Now, sometimes they're going to tell you how much they bought it for, when they bought it, how much money they put down, how much money they owe, okay? But you should, in most markets, you can find this data online, okay? And if you're a realtor, that helps. Like in Arizona, we can go in the tax records. We can see when they bought it, when they last refinanced it, how much money they put down, all that kind of stuff, what they bought it for. In a lot of markets, if you're a realtor, you can find that. But sometimes even just going into the county, if you're not a realtor, you can find that stuff. Malik says, I just sent you that I'm available for the one-on-one call with you tomorrow. Sweet. All right, cool. So if you sent me an email, I'll be getting back to you. It's like the end of day today. So worst case, if that time's filled up, I might have to bump that, Malik. But no worries, man. We'll get you set up through one-on-one call. And guys, if you want a one-on-one call inside the code, go back and buy the code again and take advantage of that one-time opportunity because I literally charge $7.97 for my 30-minute one-on-one calls. And I only do a few of them a month. And that's why I charge so much, because they're time consuming and I'm crushing wholesale deals every day. So the best thing to do is just buy the code again for $3, click that little tab and get a $97 upsell to get on the phone with me for 15 minutes. Might sound expensive. It's actually a really good deal, especially if you have specific questions. All right, guys. So the italics top and the bottom is not something you're going to talk to them about live on the phone. You're going to start at number 1. Okay, 1 through 9, that's what we're going to be talking to the seller about. So the first thing is greeting. I just walked into the office. Can I get the address from you again to pull up my notes? Okay, now if they call in and like, let's say it's a direct mail lead or they call your Google pay-per-click number or something like that and you answer, you're going to say, hi, this is Josh. And they're going to go, hey, Josh, I was just on your website. I want to sell my house, right? You're not going to say, well, I just walked into my office, but you could, right? Because even with direct mail, a lot of times they call you and they're like, well, I got this letter. What do you want to give me for my house? You're like, well, what's your address? And they're like, what do you mean? Don't you have my address? You sent me this letter. And you can't just be like, well, yeah, I sent that to 10,000 people this month. Because that's not really going to help you build rapport. That's not going to help them think they're going to get the best offer possible. So it's a great line with direct mail incoming calls. And if you're cold calling on steroids people back, it's a great line as well. Even though you're calling them, they answer. And they're like, hey, this is Bill. Hey, Bill, it's Josh. We're playing phone tag about your house. Oh, hey, Josh, how's it going? Hey, great. So got your call. Real quick, can I get the address from you again? I want to pull up my notes. Okay, what that's going to do is a lot of people are going to, if you called them and they call you back and you call them again, they're going to assume you have the property address in front of them. They might even assume, like I said, that you already know what you're going to offer them. So by saying, I just walked into the office, can I get the address from you again to pull up my notes? It automatically makes them think you do know about their house. It plays into what they're thinking, and you're going to pull up your notes so you can get right to your point. And they like that. So if you do that, they're going to just give you the address like 99% of the time. They're like, oh, sure, it's 123 West Main Street, right? Okay, so now number 2. That's real quick, right? There's not even a lot to it. Like literally, what you say is right there. Like the script is next to number 1. All you have to do is read it. Okay. Number 2, they give you the address. So number 2. You write the address down, and as you're writing the address down, okay, you want to go to number 3. So they go, Josh, it's one. So I say, I just walked into the office. Can I get the address from you again so I can pull up my notes? Well, sure, Josh. It's 123 West Main Street. Okay, 123 West. By the way, how much do you want for it? Okay, so as you're writing down the address, or you might be typing it in your computer if you're trying to look in the tax records or Zillow or whatever. I like to write it down really fast. Right? So that if I type it in wrong and it doesn't pull up, I still have it. So he's like 123 West Jasper Court. I'm like, Jasper, right? I can write down Jasper, right? And then if I type it in and that's not right, I still remember what he said. If I just typed it in Jasper and it doesn't find anything and it like erases, I'm like, wait, what was that again? So I like to write it down. And then I ask them, okay, by the way, what'd you want for it? And typically they're going to say, I don't know, like 80% of the time. So if you notice, there's a spot there, you would literally write IDK. But then it says right next to it in parentheses, if I don't know, you want to ask, well, what have your neighbor's house has been selling for on the market? Okay? Because they might be like, well, I don't want to tell you what I want for my house. I want you to give me an offer. But then you can, when you reframe it and ask them a different way, well, what are your neighbors selling them on the open market for? Now they're going to kind of let their guard down. They're going to be like, well, there's one listed for this, or I think my neighbor sold it for this. Or they might even say, I really have no idea. And then you just put, I don't know again. You don't need to grill them here. Just ask the questions and write down what they wrote down. Now later, when you have salespeople working for you, or maybe you already do, when they put that stuff, that tells you something. You're like, oh, so you asked them what they wanted. They said, I don't know. Or they said, none of your business. And then you said, well, what are the neighbors' houses selling for on the market? And they said, I haven't really paid attention. That still tells you something. Of course, they could be lying, right? But most people aren't. You're going to be surprised at how honest most people are when you ask them the right questions in the right order, in the right way, with the correct tonality, and you display confidence in what you say, and you show that you actually know what you're talking about. So now let's go back to that example real quick. And the guy said Jasper Court, right? I'm like, Jasper Court. If you are typing it in, you're trying to find it on Zillow and your MLS or whatever, and it's not pulling up, go to Google really quick and Google it. 123 West Jasper Court. Because Google, if you're not typing it correctly, it's going to go, did you mean 123 West Jasper? And you might realize it's Jasper, not Jasper. You thought they were saying Jasper, right? It'll usually, a lot of times, and then you just copy and paste it into Zillow or into your MLS or wherever to look at the property, okay? So again, recap through these first 3. Ring, ring, ring. Hi, this is Josh. Hey, Josh, I got your postcard. Oh, awesome. I just walked back into the office. Can I get the address from you again? Oh, yeah, it's 123 West Jasper Court. And I'm writing that down. Okay, great. And what did you want for it? And now I might start to type as he's asking me what he wants for it to pull it up, right? And if you're at the very beginning and it's too hard to like type and try to pull up the property as you talk to him, then just go down the script. Don't worry about it. You can pull up the property after you get off the phone. You can underwrite it off to the phone. Okay, don't. The important thing is to stay on the script and get this information from him. Ask him these questions. He goes, I don't know. Well, what have your neighbors been selling their house for on the market? About 200,000. So you're gonna write, 200K. Okay, awesome. So now we're getting into bullet point 4. Okay. Awesome. So is this a house you live in? Right? Yeah, we live here. Okay, great. And do you know about when you're going to be moving? Yeah, we're moving to Florida next month. Oh, okay, great. Are you having a house built, or no? We're moving in with my kids. Okay, great. That just told you so much. They're moving next month. They're probably not going to want to have an empty house here. They're probably not going to want to pay rent where they're moving or whatever. They're having a new house built. Maybe they need the cash from this. Whatever those situations are, when you know when they're moving and where they're moving, like 80 to 90% of the time, that's going to also tell you why they're moving or why they're selling. And this is super powerful information so that you can now tell them what they want to hear. You can educate them. And ultimately, you can qualify, are they a real seller? And are they potential to be wholesale or retail, right? If they say, well, I don't really know where I'm going to move. Well, great. Well, do you know when you plan on moving? No, not really. These are huge retail flags. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to keep going. Maybe they're just lying to you and they don't want to tell you the truth yet, right? A lot of times people might say, oh, I don't really know. And then later, when you've gone deeper all the way through this process, you make an offer and all this stuff, then they're like, oh, well, yeah, actually, I'm having another house built in 2 months and I'm not going to be able to afford. But like the story will evolve. That's all part of cracking the shell. You're not necessarily going to crack the shell right here, which is another reason you don't want to go super deep. Like you don't want to be like, well, you don't know. Well, what, you don't want to just stay stuck on it because it will all come out. This is designed to get everything to come out. And then when we get into the offer process, that'll make it all come out too. What if they're holding their cards too close to their chest? Are you going to miss something? No, that's why we pull away. When we pull away, if they're bluffing, they're usually going to kind of come with us and tell us more, right? So this is all very scientific, this process, guys. Okay, so if it's owner-occupied, number 4, occupancy, you're going to write OO for owner-occupied or ONO, or however you want to put it, owner-occupied. And if it's owner-occupied, you want to know when they plan on moving and where they plan on moving to, okay? Now, if it's vacant, you can just circle vacant next to 4A. You want to know how long it's been vacant. Vacant because they just evicted the tenant this weekend is very different from vacant and it's been vacant for 4 months or 4 years. Right? So when it's vacant, you want to know how long it's vacant. It's been vacant for 10 years because it was this happened and we just haven't dealt with the property. It's been in the family, but we don't really care. That's going to be a lot different than, well, it's vacant. The tenants just moved out last week, but I just listed it with the realtor today for rent, but I thought I'd see what you have to offer. All right? So that's going to tell you something. You want to know how long it's been vacant. If it's a rental property, you want to know, is it month-to-month rent or is it a long-term lease? And the reason you want to know that is because if you get this deal, you're going to sell it you're going to wholesale the deal out, and your buyer is going to care, can I get the tenants out within 30 days or within 90 days, whatever the state laws are, and flip the house quickly because there's a lot of equity? Or do I have to honor this lease for 6 months or a year or 2 years and then sell it? Because that will greatly affect the value. If the house is on month-to-month rent and I know I'm getting with a ton of equity and I want to flip it, right, then I'm going to be like, cool, no big deal that it's month-to-month rent because I can just give them notice and then flip the house. Or if you're not sure if it's going to go to a landlord or to a flipper, then great. Month-to-month works for either one of them. The landlord can write a longer lease with them or keep them in play. The flipper can give them notice and get them out, right? If it's a long-term date, there might be tons of equity, but a flipper might pass on that deal just because he doesn't want to tie up his money for 6 months or a year, right? So you want to know that right up front. And you might educate them on the difference too, because later they might be stuck on retail and you might say, well, you told me you really want the cash now, but you also told me it's in a long-term lease. Look, you're not going to be able to get full retail. I know you said the house across the street that looks just like yours sold for $200, but you're probably not going to get $200 because they sold it to somebody who put down, who did a BA loan with no money down and lived in the house. That's an owner-occupied type buyer getting a loan. They typically pay the most money because it's not really their money. They're really just can afford the monthly payment. The bank's the one giving them the money, right? But you can't sell it to a buyer like that because you've got a tenant in it for a year. So unless you want to sell it next year, in which case you're probably going to have to, do paint and carpet and the other things because it's been a rental property. So this is telling you a lot. So to summarize number 4, guys, it's owner occupied. You want to know you want to know when they plan on moving and where they're planning on moving to. If it's vacant, you want to know how long it's been vacant. And if it's a rental, you want to know, is it long-term lease or is it month to month? And then also you want to know the monthly amount that they're paying in rent. That's not as huge, honestly, unless it's long-term. If it's long-term lease, and yeah, you probably want to know that. If it's month to month, and you're like, probably anybody's going to flip this, then so it's going to kind of depend on your market. If you're trying to get a lot of turnkey rentals and wholesale them off to one of those buyers, then it's going to be more important to find out what they're paying. But even then, guys, the new buyer can always adjust what they're going to pay if they know if it's month. So like, even if somebody's paying, like we just had a lead in Indiana, the person's paying like $300 a month. Well, market rent's like $700 a month, but they've been in the property for like 8 years and there's no lease. They're just month to month. So I don't really care they're paying $300 because we can raise the rent to $700 after we buy it, or the person we wholesale it to can, right? And if they don't like that, they can move out, we'll rent it to somebody else. So not that big of a deal, but depending on your market, you might want to press more on how much they're paying, right? Depending on what you plan on doing with it or who you plan on selling it to. And then the next question next to monthly rent is this your only rental property or do you own others? So it says others owned, right? Because you're like, it's much different. When you talk to somebody that's like, oh yeah, I own 20 rentals, that person typically, they're in the game, they're in the business. They're going to want to max out their value, how much they can walk away with. And they typically know the difference between retail and wholesale anyways, but still it's going to tell you, they might know, well, I could get 100 for retail, but I'm only going to walk away with 80. I could wholesale. So if I'm going to try to wholesale it close to 80 versus the person that's like, well, no, it's my only rental property. I never should have even bought it, or I bought it. It was my son's house, but then, while he was living there, he moved out, right? So it's going to tell you a lot, knowing like, do they own a bunch of rentals or is this just kind of this one-off property that they ended up having as a rental? Okay. Now, like I said, guys, occupancy is typically going to tell you 80 to 90% of the reason why they're selling. If it's vacant, right? They're going to tell you, and you ask them how long it's been vacant, it's probably going to kind of give you some insight as to why they're willing to sell now or looking to sell now. Okay. If it's owner occupied and you know when they're moving and where they're moving, that's usually going to kind of tell you why they're moving. They say, well, yeah, we're moving to Florida next month. Okay, well, then you might say, well, why are you moving to Florida, right? Now that's telling you why they're selling, right? And if it's tenant occupied, but you might get in a situation where they're like, well, yeah, we're planning on moving in like 6 months. Where to? Well, we're not really sure yet. Where you staying local? You're moving out of state? Not really sure yet, right? You've filled those out, but now you get to number 5 and you're like, I don't know why this person's selling. So you ask them, literally, you just say, so why are you selling? Why are you looking to sell now? Okay, so a lot of times you're going to kind of already know this, and you might like think you know it based on occupancy, but it never hurts to just say, so why are you selling real quick? And they might go, well, I told you, or they might tell you more, right? Or if they vomited the whole situation to you, and you're like, I completely already know all of why they're selling and stuff, then you would skip it. But you want to make sure that you're able to write this down. In addition to the occupancy, you should have something for number 5, because when you ask them when they're moving, where they're moving, how long it's been vacant, all that kind of stuff, they might tell you, well, there was a tenant and he got evicted. They're telling you all these stuff, so you'd write that down in number 5. So number 4 and number 5, they kind of go together, right? All right, so now when you're through 5, you should know their address, at least if they're willing to tell you their asking price. Sometimes they'll get lucky, like the lady that told us 162 last week. We wholesaled that deal, by the way, the next morning for $200,000, $38,000 assignment fee. We closed this week. It's awesome. Then they give you the occupancy, so you kind of know now when they're planning on doing this deal, if they're serious, or if there's kind of, they're like, well, we don't know when we're selling, or we don't know where we're moving, we don't know any of that kind of stuff. You're like, okay, well, why are you selling? Well, just because you called, right? So you know quite a bit when you get to here. Or they're like, again, they're like, well, yeah, we're getting relocated for work. We move next month. We're really worried about paying 2 mortgages. But we talked to a realtor. They told us we need to do all these things to the house and that it would take several months. So that's kind of why we're talking to you, right? So when you get to here, you already know a lot of information. You've only been on the phone for typically, anywhere from 2 minutes to maybe 5 or 10 at the most, if they were really like super, super talkative or something. Now you're going to ask them quickly. You're going to get to number 6. Now, if you notice, guys, number 6, there's some things that are bold. These are things you definitely want to make sure you find out what you're talking to them. So if you're looking on the computer, you might look up at Zillow or the MLS and see, is there a recent listing with pictures? And the reason why is if it was listed last year as a rental property, you can go, oh, by the way, I see that there's some pictures here. You had it listed a year ago. Does it still look pretty much the same? And if they say yes, and there's lots of pictures, you don't have to ask them a million questions here. You're like, okay, great. Well, I'll be able to look at those and get a pretty good idea. Does it still pretty much look the same? Now, you still want to ask them some questions, but the point is you don't have to go over every single detail. Guys, a lot of times the people that are going to be wholesale sellers who give me great deals, like that lady last week, she does not want to tell you like every single little thing. So they're just like, I want a number. What do you want to give me? Okay, that'll work, right? Now, sometimes you want to talk about the things a little bit because you need to be like, well, how's the air conditioner? Well, it's 15 years old. Oh, okay. And they're hearing themselves say it's 15 years old. It's probably through the end of the life. So it's good to kind of touch on some of this stuff. But if they're telling you like, oh, it's got painted cabinets and we just redid the hardware and the yard's got a sprinkler, and they're telling you every little single thing, that's a retail flag that they really have a lot of pride in their house. It's a really nice house and they probably want retail. Okay, not necessarily, but that's why we call it a flag, because probably. Okay, so it's good to see if there's pictures of the listing real quick if you're able to. Now, again, if you're like one of those people that I said you're just getting started and you're like, it's stressful to like go back and forth between asking questions and writing down and going to your computer and looking up on Zillow, then don't worry about that. Okay, just ask them these questions, and then when you're done, you'll punch it in, and maybe you find pictures, and you're like, "How sweet! They said there's granite countertops. Now I can see the granite countertops, right?" All right, so your property type, there you're just going to write, house. If it's a house, it's good to notate if it's a single family or a double family, or I'm sorry, if it's a single level or double level or that kind of stuff, because when you go to underwrite the property and see how much it's worth, that stuff makes a difference. But property type's pretty simple, right? Is it a house? Is it condo? Is it mobile home? Is it raw land? Whatever. Okay, beds and bathrooms, and a lot of MLSs and a lot of county records and stuff, it'll have the square footage, but not the beds and bathrooms. So we like to write the beds and ask them the beds and bathrooms or confirm that. It might say 3.2, and they're like, well, we also converted the den to a fourth bedroom, right? So some of that stuff's good to know. Square foot, there's two types of square footage to be aware of, guys. There's the square footage, and then there's like there's the tax assessed square footage, and then there's the real square footage. So sometimes they'll tell you 1,200, and you look it up, and it says 1,000. Or like in Arizona, you can look it up, and it might say 1,200, but it'll say original square foot 1,000, 200 square foot addition. Right? So you want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples when you underwrite this property when you get off the phone. So asking beds, and we like to ask them beds and baths, square footage, year bill. A lot of times you're not going to have to ask them year bill. That's public data almost always. The Zillow estimate, that should be in italics. You don't usually need to ask them Zillow too. The reason we put that there is if they tell us it's Zillow, because you'll see it's also at the bottom. So it's at the bottom because that's something you should always be looking up, because they might tell you 260 and you're like, what the heck, where's this 260? Oh, Zillow is 259, right? But if they tell you the Zillow estimate, you put it here, and that tells you, so that's why it's not in italics, I'm sorry, that tells you, oh, this person actually knows. Okay, they've actually looked at Zillow because they said, well, Zillow is blah, 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 blah. So you could be up here asking price. Well, I don't know, Zillow says whatever, and you can write it down here. Now also, anytime they tell you something, it's their words, put it in quotes. So in other words, square footage, I think it's like 1,600, put 1,600 in quotes. Now, when you're underwriting the property, you might notice it's 1,550. You can write down 1,550 next to that, 1,600 in quotes. And that's kind of language that they said it was 1,600, but you can touch, but I know you said it was 1,600, it's actually 1,550. And a lot of the houses in your neighborhood are 1,690. So I know you said you thought you were the same floor plan as this other one, but you weren't, okay? Now, beds, baths, square foot, year bill, that stuff's all pretty basic, right? Here's where it's going to vary. The same thing with parking, pool, right? Floors and countertops are the biggest thing. When they start getting lost in all those details and stuff like that, and some people just don't want to tell you, you're like, well, how old's the, have you redone your kitchen? Well, yeah, we did like 15 years ago. Oh, okay, well, did you use this? Right? Sometimes people are going to be like, you're going to lose them there because they're like, I don't know, take a look at it. Do you want to come look at it? Whatever, right? So what we like to ask to get right to the point is what kind of floors do you have in your house? And what kind of countertops do you have in your house? If they say we've got hardwood floors and we've got granite, it's probably a pretty nice house. If they're like, oh, it's the original laminate floors, like linoleum, it's the original laminate countertops, right? You're like, okay, it's kind of beige, right? So floors and countertops tell you a lot. Okay, parking, is it driveway only? Is it two-car garage? Is there carport, etc.? In Arizona, pool's a big one. Okay, in your market, you might not use pool very much. So maybe nobody has pools, or it doesn't really matter. Maintained 1 through 5. I don't necessarily ask them. We don't necessarily ask them if it's maintained 1 through 5. Usually what we say is it in pretty good shape? Does it need anything fixed, right? Then we read between the lines based on the finishes that they tell us of the floors and countertops, and based on all the other things they say, and we assign a number to it. 1 is it's a dump. It's, fire damaged. It's like whatever, trash. 2, it's really crappy. Not necessarily, maybe it's livable, but it's horrible. 3, it's like an average rental property. Probably needs paint and carpet. It's not really upgraded, but it's, it's decent. You could move into it. 4 is like it's a really nice house, but it's like, maybe the homeowners updated it or took really good care of it, but it's not like a remodel. And 5 is going to be like, you know, it's like remodeled, it's updated super recently. Okay. Roof age and AC age, those are good things to ask them. Again, AC might not apply in certain markets, but those are major components, roof and age. And then right next to that, if it's newer than 85, usually it's going to have updated style windows. Usually the sewer line's not going to need to replace. Usually the plumbing and the electrical are all going to be current. Okay, but if it's older than 1985, and in some markets maybe 1980, you definitely want to ask them, if you guys updated the windows? Well, no, we haven't. And they're thinking like, oh, I didn't even think of that, right? And that's helping you bridge the gap between retail and wholesale. Like, well, yeah, I know you guys said Zillow is 230, but did you know that Zillow is looking at all the fully updated, remodeled houses that have been selling recently? Right? If it's older than 85, you might want to ask them, is it still the original sewer line? Well, no, I mean, there's no problems with the sewer line. Oh, no, that makes sense. It's just the house is 50 years old. So probably in the next 10, 15 years tops, it's going to need a new sewer line. Oh, we didn't think of that, right? You don't have to hammer them on that, but it's just the fact that you asked them made them think about it. You know, oh, the house was built in the 50s. Is it still the original plumbing? Yeah, it's pretty much all the original everything. And they're going, oh, yeah, I bet those ones that sold, you know, with the realtor that at that high price was probably had updated plumbing. Same thing with electrical. Okay. So guys, again, you should get through the property information in like 5 minutes. If you're going into it for 10 minutes, you're probably wearing them out, or they're probably trying to sell you on how nice it is. And neither one of those things are good. If they're trying to sell you on how nice it is, it's a retail flag. You want to get right to it. And, you know, you'll deal with that after you underwrite it and make their offer, and you can pull away from them and see if they come back and see if they're willing to talk, right? You'll come back to this stuff sometimes after you hit them with an offer. We'll get more into this later. But right now, you just want to kind of get the basic information so you can do a quick underwriting when you get off the phone, and you can kind of figure out this is probably what it's worth, and this is probably what we want to offer. And somebody had asked earlier, what's wholesale, what's wholesale, and there's also retail. So wholesale is like what I think I could quickly sell this for as is to a retail buyer. Wholesale is what I think I could sell it to like a fix and flipper or rental, like somebody who I'm going to wholesale the deal to. Okay, you don't need to go super in depth on that. I'll explain why those are important and how that all works and how you formulate your offer based on those later. Okay. But the point is here, guys, just get enough information so you can underwrite it and be like, it's probably worth about this. If they were to list it with the realtor, I think they'd probably sell it for about this. And I think this is about what I could wholesale it for. So you just need enough information to figure out, like, you know, to underwrite the deal. We'll talk more about underwriting in the next module. All right, guys. So now you've greeted them, you've gotten the address, you felt them out for asking price. They probably aren't going to tell you what they would take, but they're probably going to tell you at least something. And everything tells you something, right? You've gotten the occupancy, you kind of know why they're selling. You've got the basic information of the property, so you can pretty much figure out what it's worth. Now you want to tell them. It says tell our story. You don't want to just be a cash. Well, we make cash offers on houses. We buy your house as is, right? Everybody does that now. So you want to tell your story. Why are you interested in their house? Right? Now, I own a rental property portfolio, so we're always looking for rental properties. In fact, we just snagged one today. It's going to be an awesome deal. Remember I told you guys we got a new one? I think we're going to keep it. It's a condo, 2-bedroom condo in North Phoenix. We got it for 80 grand. They're going retail for 110 right now, and that's low for even condos. Like most 2-bedroom condos right now in Phoenix are going to be 150 to 200. We got this one. It's in a lower price range, but there's a ton of demand because of this location. It's one of those properties. There's not very many that exist like that. Even at the retail values, they're hard to get, and we're getting it at wholesale value. So we might keep that one. But anyways, my point is, even if we weren't going to keep that, we pretty much use that story on all of our deals. We always just sold one of our properties, right? Because we always just did wholesale deals. We're always looking to buy it. So I like to tell my story. Well, guys, so I don't know if I really mentioned this to you. So, right, they've just given me all the info about the property. So I'm like, okay, great. The AC is 10 years old. Okay. All right, cool. So I think I've got enough information here. I'll do a little bit of homework here in a minute and to get an offer ready for you. But I don't know if I really had a chance to tell you, you know, kind of what's going on with us. Well, we just sold one of our houses, so we've got some cash from that, and we are looking to take that cash and buy another property. And we're kind of up against a time limit here. That we actually get an advantage if we take that money, we put it into another property, because we can defer our taxes. Now, guys, this is getting a little more complicated, and you guys can read on what a 1031 exchange is. Okay, 1031 exchange, you take the money, the profit from a house that you've owned for a long time, you roll it into another investment property that you're going to keep. You can actually defer that to pay no taxes. Okay, it's awesome. So sometimes, a lot of times when rental investors do this, they'll pay a little, they still want to get a good deal, but they'll pay retail or close to retail for the right property, right? Because they don't want to pay the taxes, and they only get a specific amount of time to reinvest that money. If you miss that 45-day window, you got to pay the big tax bill. So most of your customers aren't going to know what a 1031 exchange is. You may or may not know what it is. So you don't want to get lost in the details. You just want to explain to them, I just sold a property. That's where the cash is coming from. So now it's a very real thing. You're not just like every other, we buy your house for cash trying to rip it off. You're like, no, I was actually calling about your house. I'm actually interested in your house. I actually sent you mail because I just sold a house and I have this money and I want to reinvest it. And the government allows me to not pay taxes right now if I reinvest it. And you own a house in an area where I want to reinvest. This is good news for you, Mr. Seller, because this means, I can probably pay more than anybody else. And, because I'm my back's against the wall. And not only that, but our window, they don't give us very much time and we're almost towards the end of it. So you're starting to set them up so that later when you make your offer and they're like, number one, you're building value. You're giving them hope for gain, right? We talked about hope for gain, but you're also pre-framing them. When I say pre-framing them, I mean setting them up so that later when you make their offer and they go, well, this sounds pretty good. Let me think about it for a week. You can go, well, hold on. Remember I told you I don't have very much time? Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, I think this is a great offer, but in a week, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to buy your house anymore. Okay, there's this other house that actually is a pretty good deal, but I don't like the location of it at all. But I told them I would make a decision by next week because I'm at the end of my rope. I would way rather buy your house. So even if I gotta, let me know what it's going to take, right? This is later when you're negotiating after you made your offer. So we'll come to this later in the offer modules. But you want to create a whole situation at the point, guys. This is going to create urgency to get them to make a decision, and it's going to give them hope for gain. Now, I'm not saying lie to them. Okay, so you might not use the exact same script as we use because we always just sold a house. We're always looking for rental properties. We're almost always in a 1031 exchange. At least we have been for the last several years because the market's been going up. So we pretty much always just sold a rental property. Like we literally the last one we sold was about not even 30 days ago. Sold one here in North Phoenix as a house. But anyways, that works for us, okay? So you might adjust your story a little bit, okay? Don't lie and say something that you're comfortable saying. Okay, should be honest, but have a story, have a reason of why you want to buy their house so that they don't think you're just like every other 1-800 we buy houses. Okay, very important. Now, some people aren't going to care, okay, but most people are going to care, even if it's just subconsciously. And then after you kind of tell them your story, which shouldn't take more than a minute or two, they're not going to want to get lost in leads and hear about you. They want to hear about what you can do for them. So you're just letting them know what's going on with them and how it benefits them and getting to your point. And then you say, so by the way, with that situation, this is really good for you because we'll be able to buy your house as is, which means you don't have to do anything. Okay, that's the benefit for them. You give them the value, but you also give them the benefit. So the value is we'll buy your house as is. The benefit is you don't have to do anything. So we'll buy your house as is, which means you don't have to do anything. And don't take it for granted that they know what as is means. Now they might because they already talked to, OfferPad and Zillow and all these other we'll buy your house cash, but a lot of people won't. And so you want to make sure that they understand exactly what you're saying. You don't have to do anything. With most buyers, they're going to want you to fix it up and repair, realtors, etc. But if you sell it to us, you don't have to do anything. And we would rather do the work ourselves because we have, we're in the business and we can probably get it done cheaper than you could get it done. So we would rather pay you a little bit more to buy it as is than for you to put money into it and then buy it from you and you have to recoup your money. So again, you're showing them the value of selling it to you as is, right? Also, there would be no fees. So that's going to be a huge savings to you. You're not going to have to pay the title fees. You're not going to have to pay a realtor, and you can pick the move out date. Okay. And then we also have in here, we will take care of an XYZ situation. Okay. Now, XYZ situations, whatever they said, remember they were like, well, we're having a new house built. We need to run it back for a couple weeks, right? So here's your opportunity. You're going to make the offer at whatever you want. So you can give them their exact situation, and we'll even do that if we can make the numbers work, right? If you can get it the right price, I think you'll deal with any situation. Am I right or am I right? Okay. All right, guys. So you underwritten you got their information up top. You got the property address. You kind of know why they're selling, when they're looking to sell, which gives you some insight as to are they a real seller? Are they a possible wholesale seller? You got the basic property information so you can figure out what this thing's worth and probably what you need to buy it for. And you kind of told them your story, gave them hope for gain, and explain to them the benefit of doing business with you. And then you say, with all that being, now you're on number 8, asking price number 2. Asking price number 2, bullet point 8. With all that being said, what would you take for your property to walk away and be able to commit to now? Okay, now typically if you've done your job right, the price up here is going to be typically high. You've displayed confidence and knowledge and you understand and you've cracked their shell and you've built rapport. They're usually going to give you something a little lower on number 2. But don't be fooled and think that they're giving you their real price that they would take. They will take lower, and we'll find that out after we make the offer. Okay, and that's going to make a whole bunch more sense later. Right now, you just want to see, are they moving in price? Or were they 160 and they said they wanted 160 and you told them all that stuff about realtor fees and how they weren't paying and they still want 160. And you're like, well, hold on. And if you sold for 160, even with a realtor, you're not going to walk away with 160. Yeah, but we just want 160. Okay, well, that at least tells you they're kind of stubborn. Maybe they haven't talked to enough people. Maybe they aren't serious, right? So these are flags, right? But if you've done it correctly, you should get kind of a bump here. If you don't worry about it, because you're going to call back and make the offer, and they're going to go, whoa, that's way too low. And then you're going to go, well, I know you said you wanted this, but, and then now that you've done some research after you got off the phone and you've shown them empathy, now you can start to negotiate and be like, well, look, I know you said that, but it's just not really realistic. Okay. Right now, you're literally just like asking price number one. You don't beat them up. You just say, what do you want for your house? And they go, I don't know. Or they say, I want 90,000. If they say 90,000, you don't need to ask them what their neighbors are selling for. But if they say, I don't know, since most of them will, then you go, well, what are the neighbors selling for? Well, I don't know. I think about 200. Okay, great. So they already told you that they think like the house, their neighbors are selling for 200. Then you've went through all this other stuff that you do and what your situation is. And you go, well, with all that being said, what would you take? And if they go, well, 200, you can go, you might say, well, I know you said the neighbors' houses were selling for 200, but those people are all selling with the realtors. So remember how I explained that there wouldn't be any fees and you can pick the date you want and all that kind of stuff. So I'm talking about a number in your pocket, not necessarily the high sales price. Like if you list with the realtor, oh, okay. Well, with that being said, I guess I'd take 170, whatever, right? Okay, great. Now you're into bullet point number 9, which is simply, as we talked about before, set the call back or set the appointment. All right, great. So thank you for all this information. I'm going to do a little bit of homework right now. Are you going to be home in the next 20 to 30 minutes? Right? And they're going to be like, I might be. Why? Well, I'm going to do a little homework right now. I'm going to see what the most I can pay for your property is. And I'm going to call you back with the number. Now, if you like that number, I can send you the contract. Or I can, if you want to meet in person, I can come out and meet you in person and sign that contract. If you don't like that number, no worries, no pressure at all. And if you want to think about it, that's cool too. And they're going to be like, okay, that sounds great, right? So you're warming them up. And then, but you also want to know, are they going to be around? You don't want to play phone tag. Okay, great. And is this your, yeah, I'll be around in 30 minutes. Okay, great. So this is your cell phone? No, this is the home phone. Okay. Do you want me to call you on your home phone or your cell phone? Yeah, call me on my cell phone. So it's a good time to kind of, you don't want to beat them up. You don't have to get both numbers, right? But asking those questions is good, especially if you've built trust and rapport. You should be able to ask them these types of questions, right? Like if they're actually, this is potentially going to be a deal, especially if this stuff all is giving you wholesale flags or even just flags that they are committed to selling, you should easily be able to get their phone number. If not, that's a flag. Why not? Do they not trust you yet? Or do they really not want to sell yet? And they're just kind of feeling you out, right? Everything is a flag. All right, guys, so in a nutshell, that's it. So we've got our greeting, just walked into the office, we get the address, right? Hi, this is Josh. Get the address, hit them with an asking price early, see what they say. Don't beat them up. Get the occupancy information, which is probably going to give you some insight as to why they're selling. If not, ask them why they're selling. Get the basic property information so you can kind of figure out what it's worth, what you can probably sell it for after you get off the call. You're going to figure this out. Make sure you kind of tell them your story. Build some value for them. Explain to them, give them some hope for gain, and make sure that they understand how this is all going to benefit them if they're able to sell you your house. Ask them the asking price again. Make sure that they understand this is a walk-away number and that, if they were to sell with a realtor, that'd be a higher number than they'd walk away with a lower number. Even if nothing else, this tells you their frame of mind. Maybe they really don't understand that people are, when they sell it on the MLS for 200, they don't actually walk away with 200. So you don't have to fight with them here. You can do that later when you get to the offer and the negotiations. You just want to build rapport with them, show them empathy, build credibility, and kind of figure out how they're thinking, right? All this is part of cracking the shop. And then you set the appointment, whether that's to call them back or to go out in person. Now, I would rather call them back and make the offer over the phone, okay? Because we can always go to the house. We know where they live. We need an appointment that bad, right? Now, some people are going to be like, well, I can go through this stuff way deeper in person. So if you want to do that and that's better for you, then do it in person. But there are some advantages to getting the contract and then going out to the house. And we'll get into that more later in the series. Andy says, I love this stuff. Thank you so much, Josh. You're the best. One with the recording, be ready to rewatch it. Guys, so my back end will get this this module uploaded into the code within the next couple days, hopefully sooner than later. I will download that. This is all being recorded right now. My desktop will render it, and then I'll be able to upload it. The guys on the back end will be able to grab that and put it onto the inside the code membership area. I don't even know how to do that part. And then it'll be available for you guys. So really excited, guys. Kevin says killer info, much appreciated. Guys, this will save you so much time. This will help you make so much money. I'm really excited. And guys, we didn't even scratch the surface on all this. So like, don't think like, well, I know Josh's process. Now, yeah, the more leads you go through this, right? Because you're not going to like master it just from listening to this call. You're just not. But the more you go through this with repetition, talking to a lot of leads, which is why module number 3 and having marketing turned on is so killer important, you will eventually become a master. Also, come to Miami, right? Or at least get the replays, because we will go in depth on this stuff, and way more in depth, honestly, than even I was able to go in this hour-and-a-half class. All right, guys, bestseller sheet I've seen so far. Andy says, you guys are all killer. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your appreciation. And I just want to, I just look forward to getting DMs and emails and testimonials of how this saved you time and energy and made you more money and got you contracts. So guys, please share your success. Ricky says great stuff. Thanks, Ricky. Please share you guys' success and your wins with me. We will be opening up the Facebook group inside the code and probably around module 10. And so you'll have an easy avenue to share it and encourage with each other and connect with each other. In the meantime, hit me up, let me know about your successes, and make sure that you're on these live calls so I can help you guys with stuff that's going on in your business. We're going to go all the way through the rest of this business. If you're just tuning into this video right now, this is module 4 of a 19-part series, How to Wholesale from A to Z, and I'm super pumped. All right, guys, peace, love, and real estate.